To fight out of fear or anger is to fight a war that never ends. Face your fears, calm your hatreds, find peace within yourself so that you may share it with the world around you. These are the greatest treasures in life. The last emperor of Pandaria, upon learning of the Shah ceasing to exist. Along with decay, the element of spirit is one of the most mysterious cosmic forces in the universe up to this point. In my video about decay, I said BFA started a growing threat that has been building in the background ever since it was introduced. But what about the cosmological opposite of decay? Spirit. The monk mythology, the culture at Pandaria, the myths of ancient races, the spirits of faraway lands, the genesis of souls, and the lifeblood of all living things, and much more coalesce into the grand story of spirit. In lore, every planet has 6 elements: fire, water, earth, air, decay, and spirit. But Azeroth lacks the element of spirit because the slumbering world soul of Azeroth consumed much of the world's element of spirit early in the world's history, which set the elements out of balance, causing them to war ever since. But shamans and monks maintain a link to spirit, using it to commune with elementals, to heal, or call upon the inner power of spirit that binds all living things together. In one of my videos, I talked about the Tauran creation myth, Eyes of the Earth Mother. There's 2 perspectives I have of Eyes of the Earth Mother. One is the perspective that the Earth Mother is just the world soul herself, but the other, and the one more important for this video, is that the Earth Mother is the element of spirit. And so I'll be talking from the perspective that the Earth Mother is the personification of the element of spirit. The Tauran creation myth, Eyes of the Earth Mother, tells a story about how the Earth Mother bore 3 children. The first 2 were twins, Anshi and Musha. She created them to help protect the world from encroaching shadows with their inner light. While they were young, she put her children into her eyes to keep them safe, and be her eyes to watch over the world while she slept. While the Earth Mother slept, her children saw the shadows spread across the world and woke their mother. The mother woke and saw the corruption by the shadows. She realized herself and her creations were not immune to the shadows' vileness, and so she cried. One of her tears fell to the world. Anshi, with the power of solar fire and earth, and Musha, with the power of the world's waters and winds, decided to set out to put an end to the shadows. On their journeys, they encountered Tauren that are not corrupted by the shadows. With them, they hold a blue child that grew from the tears of the Earth Mother, Losho. The pair are attacked by the shadows, who injure Anshi. Though Musha is able to heal Anshi, so he doesn't die, she isn't able to stop him from bleeding. The Earth Mother arrives to help them and tells Musha that so long as her light is near, Anshi will not die from his wounds, but may bleed forever. To Tauren, this is their mythological explanation for dawn and dusk. It is Anshi bleeding. The Earth Mother bids them to take the blue child and raise her well. She rips out her eyes and puts them into the sky, and then sacrifices herself to the earth to save it from the shadows once more, and then ceases to exist. This is the Tauren myth for how the sun and 2 moons are put into the skies over Azeroth. During the day, Anshi shines his light over the land for warmth and the protection of life, and at night, Musha and Losho shine their light so that people can find their way through the darkness. It is confirmed that Musha and Elune are the same entity embodied by the White Lady, the larger of Azeroth's 2 moons. It is even represented in-game by a druid buff added around the same time as the myth to lore called Will of the Ancients, where druids fluctuate between benefiting from the blessing of Anshi and the blessing of Elune. Similarly, the Night Elf racial gives crit during the day and haste at night. The Sunwalker paladins among the Tauren revere Anshi the sun and believe this is the source of their power. However, druids collectively praise the astrological entities with particular reverence for the moon, who they call Elune. I believe it is this collective worship of the celestial bodies by which grant druids the wide breadth of abilities they bear, such as sunfire, starfire, and moonfire, which do a combination of nature and arcane damage. The Taurens seem especially cherished by Anshi, while the Night Elves are by Elune. The reason I think there is a second perspective to the story is that in the Tauren myth, the Earth Mother sacrifices herself to the earth, and we know that the world soul consumed the element of spirit while she slept. Moreover, the tale says that Elune bears strong influence over the tides and winds, while Anshi fire and earth, and in lore the element of spirit is what binds all life and brings about peace among the elements. In the absence of the element of spirit, the elementals war with each other. The tale says the Earth Mother gave birth to Anshi and Elune. In the Broker cosmology chart given to us in Shadowlands Grimoire, a Chronicles-type novel from the perspective of the Brokers rather than the Titans, water and air are associated with light and shadow, while the earth and fire are associated with order and disorder, which leaves decay and spirit to life and death. The Titans' cosmology chart is similar, but more detailed from their perspective. So even though earth and fire and order and disorder are cosmological opposites, Anshi embodies both of them. The same can be said for Elune in regards to light and shadow. Moonlight is a special form of light that priests of Elune and Tauran priests of Musha may call on, and is considered a form of holy magic. The Moonwells of Azeroth are bound to her light. They are a gift of Elune to Azeroth and born from the waters of the Well of Eternity. Bathing within a Moonwell restores players of mana, and perhaps the most notable Moonwell is the former Well of Eternity offshoot beneath Andrusil on Mount Hyjal. There are many instances of Elune's direct involvement in world affairs by the grace of her moonlight. The wild gods like Malorn loved the moon such that he chased it through the night, and grew to such devotion that it is said she took Malorn as a consort, and from their love Cenarius was born. The clashing of light and shadow is said to have created the twisting nether and its unstable energies, according to the Titans. But what if I told you the harmony of light and shadow together is well documented in game? It is known as twilight magic, and embodied in game by disciplined priests who wield light and shadow. While many Twilight wielders are fallen priests like Archbishop Benedictus, there are some who seem to be immune to the draw of the void in their use of shadow magic, as they're not described as hearing its call like the player characters in the Legion Order Hall campaign. While fel and chaos magic used by warlocks and demons is born through the eternal conflict of light and shadow, disciplined priests wield them in harmony, and must balance them not to lose their independence to either, and may be attaining similar balance of these aspects of Elune through a different system of worship as the priesthood of Elune. So I failed to mention why this is significant. When we look at the broker cosmology chart, it says that air and water are aspects of shadow and light. In the Tales Eyes of the Earth Mother, it is said that Elune has control over wind and water, whereas Anshi is said to have control over earth and fire. So this is a direct correlation between these things, and this is why it's important that I keep mentioning light and shadows like importance to Elune. For instance, the Sisters of Moon boss fight in Legion has us face off with the protectors of the Tomb of Sargeras known as the Sisters of Elune. The Sisters wield twilight magic, inflicting mostly shadow and arcane damage though. Elune represents the moon, but also the stars who are light in the dark. This balance of opposing forces, nature, shadow, light, and arcane, is reminiscent of the balance of the elements brought by the element of spirit. I think we can infer the links of the astral pantheon to each of their parts by observing the magic schools. A combination of nature, shadow, light, and arcane is also known as cosmic magic. This would be the combined powers of moon and sun and stars. The combination of arcane and nature is astral magic, used offensively, notably by balanced druids. The combination of fire and holy is known as radiant magic. The combination of fire and nature is volcanic, used by druids of the flame, shamans, and evokers. And formally, the combination of arcane and holy made the divine magic type. You can see the overlap in these schools of magic and the deities in the astral pantheon of life. For instance, how from Anshi, paladins draw the holy powers of the sun, while druids call upon solar fires, and from Elune, druids may call upon the twilight rays of the moon to rend with shadow or heal with holy magic, or disciplined priests may force penance upon enemies or bid their allies for atonement. While Losho is not well understood in the pantheon at large, it is likely that Losho represents the Winter Queen, who is blue and refers to Elune as a sister, which is consistent with the Tauran myth that says they are siblings. The element of spirit is found on all worlds where there is life. Referred to by some shamans of distant places as the element of the wilds, the element of spirit is an embodiment of all living things from humanoids to plants to even non-living things like stone. In lore, the Tauren believe the Earth Mother is inside all things, smiling back at them when they look into a stream of water, or across the sands or anything. The correlations of these things strongly imply the Earth Mother was the elemental Lord of Spirit, or Spirit of the Wilds of Azeroth, who had 3 children, sought to balance nature, and shape the world together with other elementals, and give life to the prehistoric Tauren. The astral bodies in the pantheon of life represent a balance between opposing forces, and through these connections to light, life, shadow, arcane, and nature, are a cosmic force still seeking to bring balance to the world and protect mortal life, like their mother who asked them to do so. The wiki page for the element of spirit gives great insight, and I recommend reading it, as I'll be skipping much of it outside of Azeroth. We learned over time, primarily through the Pandaren mythology, that elementals are just spirits that have taken a particular form. They exist as just spirits outside of observable reality, except for when they choose to show themselves to us, but they can become material by taking the forms we are familiar with as embodiments of fire or earth or wind or water. Elementals that stay in the material plane for so long through an unknown process may take a fleshy form through the ages, and this is the origin of many races such as dragons and orcs. The process by which orcs became fleshy mortals is through the overabundance of spirit on Draenor, and it can be safely assumed this is also what happened to elemental drakes that became proto-drakes. So here, interjecting again, editing in, sorry. So the concept here basically is that all the elementals are just spirits that exist on some plane and they take the form of specific elementals when they want to cause a change in the world. So like they're all this like omni spirit or collection of spirits and some otherworldly thing like beyond the veil almost. And they materialize as elementals when they have a purpose to interact with the real world. And those spirits that stay in an elemental form on the planet for so long eventually, probably through some mechanism of spirit and decay, become mortal. And that's not a theory either. That's just the actual lore is that there's a spirit and then it takes a form and enacts something on the world. So you can imagine like say goblins are polluting in a river and then a spirit doesn't like that, so it takes the form of a water elemental to destroy their factory or disrupt their operations. And then the concept is that over a long period of time, through some process between the element of spirit and decay, if that water elemental stays there, it'll eventually become like a living thing, like a fleshy mortal. Because that's what basically happened on Draenor and lore, was that these earth elementals eventually became the Gron and orcs. Now, the reason it may have happened so quickly on Draenor is that Draenor had so much overabundance of spirit that it led to a lot of problems, like the overgrowth. And so it kind of accelerated that process, whereas it should be a much slower, gradual process where a spirit, so it's clear the process by which it happens. All right, I'll let y'all get back to my reading. Curiously, when dragons die, they do not go to Arnweald like Ysera. Ysera was intentionally sent there for rebirth by a loon. No, most dragons go to a part of the Emerald Dream called Gunnar, the Mother Tree. Gunnar likely predates even the Emerald Dream as we know it in a tangible shape, because the Loon gifted Eonor a branch of Gunnar prior to the shaping of the dream by Freya. The myth around the dream, though, is that it always existed and that Freya shaped it into what we know it as. And from the craters of life that she channeled the Well of Eternity's energy into, such as the Veil of Eternal Blossom, Shalazar, and Ungaro, the Wild Gods emerged. When the Wild Gods die, they go to Ardenweald to rest and be reborn. But dragons do not. They instead return to Gunnar to rest upon its branches. All things have souls, even the Titans and Pantheon of Death, and in lore both spirit and decay are responsible for the creation of the soul. Shamans use their link with spirit to commune with the elements and ask for their powers. The healing waters are burning fires, and spirit connects them to the earth, winds, and waves. It is said that shamans may be able to call upon the spirit of the wilds to heal, but that the spirit will only do so if it believes it will bring balance to the world to do so. Through the use of spirit, shamans have performed feats akin to druidism, like when Thrall called upon the spirit of the wilds in a time of famine, and a great white stag laid down its life for him. It is also thought to be the means by which shamans commune with their ancestor spirits. The raw element of spirit is referred to as the spirit of the wilds or spirit of life by shamans. The earthen ring was formed to bring balance to the elements and keep them at peace. Earthen ring shamans are sort of problem solvers for the elements to ease the spirits so that they will not form individual elementals and wreak havoc on the world. They are essentially playing a manually involved role that the element of spirit would do naturally, but that doesn't occur naturally on Azeroth necessarily due to the lack of spirit. However, dark shamans access the powers of the elements through spirits opposite decay. Through decay, they can bind elements to their will. Quote, Dark shaman is a version of shaman forcing the elements into servitude with decay, twisting them into burnt ash, corrupted water, and toxic air, and are iconically found within Garrosh's rogue horde and the Twilight cult. End quote. While the Earthen Ring sought to bring peace to the spirits, they would not emerge in the world to threaten it. The Twilight cult worked tirelessly to agitate and rouse the spirits for destruction. I imagine the power of dominating the mind and soul of entities like that used by the Void, Dross, Brackenhide Gnolls, Goon, and all their old gods, warlocks, and more is likely due to connection with the element of decay, as it is the same thing applied in different forms. In fact, there was a time when warlocks were just dark shamans in really old lore, but it was changed a long time ago for them to be separate things. Shadow, death, and chaos are cosmologically linked to decay on the Chronicles chart as well. However, there are instances that with such a deep connection to spirit that someone may become an embodiment of it. Quote, Pandaren veiled their beliefs in the trappings of a mystical and ancient method called geomancy. Geomancy is shamanistic in nature. Geomancy teaches that the land is a reflection of the spirits, but that spirits are also a reflection of the land. The fierce powers of the elemental spirits are for the transcendents and brewmasters that gain command. They learn to channel the power of elemental spirits. Tales say that the spirits and energies are at work in the cosmos, spirits and energy that define the essence of reality, and from these vital sources all things are formed. This is one of the central philosophies of Pandaren geomancy, and no one is more intimate with these energies than the Pandaren transcendent. End quote. From this we learn the brewmaster's source of elemental powers, and it is maybe possibly an explanation for the shaman cooldown ascendants, where they take on a sort of elemental form. As a side note, the wiki notes something I missed in my Element of Decay video. I will interject it here. The Taurans say that Quillbore eschew the beneficial side of the Earth Mother and instead take to and revere the vengeful sides. I wish I had seen this because I had wanted to include the Quillbore in my video on the Elements of Decay, but had forgot. The vines that they encase their homeland in is eerily similar to the leafless vines of the Drust who wield decay magic, or what Brackenhide has become as the center of decay energies, like how the thorn-corrupted Lashers, Treemouth, and Tree Elders appeared withered and with vines. The Pandaren bring us to a topic of my favorite class, Monk. The history of the Pandaren and monks is something special in Warcraft, and I won't be getting into the entirety of it here. I think it's disappointing that their history and culture is so strongly tied to the element of spirit and natural world, but so extremely underutilized after the events of Pandaria. The Pandarans linked to the element of spirit are perhaps the strongest of any other race and monks of any other class. While shamans are people living with reverence of the elements, monks are like an embodiment of the element of spirit. They can use their power of inner spirit in the world around them to change their physical nature, conjure fire from air, change their skin to stone, conjure healing mist from nothingness, utilize the speed of lightning to enhance their reflexes, and more. They share together with druid shamans and hunters a strong connection to the land and strive for balance inside of themselves. They are also close to the wild gods known as August Celestials, which are very different from Loa and the familiar wild gods of other cultures. To them, and many others, the elementals are not a singular thing typed by the elemental power they're associated with, like earth and fire. They are instead spirits which take those forms, and it may be through this understanding that they are able to change their own form to that of stone. Iconically, many monk abilities are associated with a green jade color, and that same color is shared with the only depictions of the element of spirit that we've ever seen. And notably, crackling jade lightning is described as an explosive externalized expression of spirit. Windwalkers may even split or duplicate their spirit to fight in multiplicity, and brewmasters may temper their spirit against damage. Mistweavers call upon jade mists which envelop and renew life of their targets. I suspect the August Celestials being so different from the other wild gods and seemingly much more powerful than many of them might be due to their ties to spirit. The Pandaren and monks revere the August Celestials as wise teachers who impart onto them the use of nature magic of their associated types. This combination of nature magic and spirit magic, or simply spirit magic's closeness cosmologically to life, may be why jade is a common theme in their abilities, and why monks refer to spirit as chi canonically. This is to say that as monks referred to chi, chi may be the magic school combination of spirit and life, or it may simply be spirit. Quote, many monks prefer to soak up the intoxicating effect of taking blows in combat while their allies press their attack. Some call upon the healing properties of the mist to balance the good and bad energies within people, returning them to good health and fortune. And despite both using the spirit of life, monks are differentiated from shamans in their ability to ask for help from the elements. End quote. This is all very fascinating to me personally, but the lore of Pandaria and subtle clues tell us a lot more about the element of spirit than just the center of a monk's source of power. We find their reverence for the natural world and the beauty of it to be oddly similar to the cultural reverence by Tauren and the Night Elves. Within the Vale, they have named places like the Gate of the Setting Sun, Shrine of Seven Stars, Shrine of Two Moons, and countless references to the sun within the Vale alone. In my Rootlands video, I brought up that the Titans of Varia experimented on life in 3 different locations. Shalazar Basin, the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, and Ungaral Crater. Shalazar's quests revolve around the Titan instrument to control the weather and its effects on nature, while Ungaro seems to be a place of frenzy evolution in the place of the first world tree of Lunahir. But the Vale is different. From these three places, the wild gods emerged into the world. Malfurion refers to Ungaro as the site of the world tree and the dream's reflection of the Titans' personal playground. The Titans and their keepers had many locations for their experiments, but there are special pools of water here that are akin to a fountain of youth within the Vale, which Garrosh used to revive the heart of Y'Shaarj, and I suspect the pools here and within the Pandaren raids are linked to the element of spirit. In a Lunahir story, Enor bid Freya to protect the roots of a Lunahir so that life would flourish. This may be why Freya elected to channel the Well of Eternity's energies into Ungaro. And Shalazar Basin is a similar study with the control of weather and environment as a test, but it was never stated what the Vale was for. Many things about the Vale's history, or indeed Pandaria's history, are shrouded in mystery. The pools of life which Garrosh threw the heart of Y'Shaarj into has no explanation for its origin or its purpose. All that is known to us is told to us through histories about events that happened and rarely why. The August Celestials are incredibly unique compared to other wild gods, and are meant to protect the Vale in Freya's absence, or at least that is what Freya told them to do. I speculate or theorize the reason the August Celestials are so unique and secular, and why the spirit is so abundant on the continent, that is because it is the place where Freya directed the well's energies to create fonts of spirit. The land of Pandaria is so rich with spirit because it was invigorated there through the Well of Eternity's energies by Freya. I think also this is why Pandaria and the Vale are so extremely different from Ungaro Crater and Shalazar Basin. I think this is why the Pandaren, unlike anyone else in the world, were able to tap into spirit so deeply and wield it so personally rather than the way shamans use it as a spiritual link to communicate with the dead or spirits of elementals. I may have mentioned that the life pools of Pandaria have no explanation. The influence of Elune, Anshi, and Loshu is subtle within the Vale. The Terrace of Endless Spring, for instance, is one such life pool. It is also the location where Emperor Shahoa summoned the Veil of Mist that protected the continent from the Sundering and subsequent events. Within the terrace there is a cloud serpent that curiously patrols in the defense of the waters. The cloud serpent Sulong can take the form of an onyx cloud serpent or gold cloud serpent, representing a shift from day to night. He calls upon solar rays which conjure holy fires, and at night he exudes nightmare and fear. But curiously is that none, not even the Golden Lotus who defend this sacred location, know why Sulong is there. The Adventure Guide on Sulong states that few have seen it, but those that claim to have seen it remark it is highly, overly protective of the waters. Quote, "No, the waters. I shall not fear. You do not belong here. The waters must be protected. I will cast you out or slay you." End quote. While there is no explanation for why the dragon is defending the waters, I think we can infer based on it having holy powers that it is of Anshi's doing, and it also drops a litany of items like Chain of Unending Summer, Belt of Final Winter, Cord of Eternal Autumn, and Girdle of Endless Spring, all things closely related to the Pantheon of life like Anshi, Elune, and Winter Queen. Day, night, spring, autumn, winter. And so it is safe to assume that its timeless duty is given by Anshi to defend the life pools. Emperor Shahoa notably becomes one with the land and watches over it as a spirit, which may be a pure form of the element of spirit since he is not considered undead like many ghosts in game. Becoming one with the land as a spirit has narrative parallels with the Earth Mother who did something similar to protect the world in prehistoric times. Which brings me to the Emperor. Brought up in Tian Monastery and given Shay Lun by a disciple of Zun, the Emperor was well learned and prepared for a life of luxury in peacetime. Unfortunately, the water speakers delivered to him a prophecy that the Nels would shatter the world, referring to the War of the Ancients. Shahoa embarked on many trials, beginning with seeking out Yulon the Jade Serpent. Yulon told him to divest himself of his burdens, to purify his spirit, and then become one with the land. He embarks on many trials to conjure the Shah and purge them from himself. When the War of the Ancients came, he walked into the Vale so vibrant and pure of spirit that trees grew and blossomed in his wake, something that continues to this day, and those that witnessed him said he was a being of pure light. He had an epiphany, and then his spirit was transformed into mist that covered the land. When the Sundering tore the land apart, Pandaria merely drifted away peacefully. A time after, the mist cleared, Shahoa appeared as the spirit we are familiar with. And after we defeat Garrosh in the heart of Y'Shaarj, we will get the fading last breath of Y'Shaarj as an item. Taking it to the spirit of Shahoa results in a cutscene, and then the Emperor's spirit turns into a tree. And in this process, the Vale begins to heal from the damage done during the events of Pandaria. Shahoa may possibly be the greatest embodiment of the element of spirit. but the greatest power used by the Earth Mother in Shahoa is that of sacrifice. Few things in the WoW universe destroy souls in totality. Most of them simply convert the soul's energy into something else, into anima, into stygia, into fiery explosions, and so on. It is said that spirit and decay are involved in the process of creating souls, and all living things in the universe have souls. The Pantheon of Death, the Titans, and everything else. It may be through this connection to the element of spirit or spirits themselves that the astral pantheon of Elune, Anshi, and Losho were capable of creating, or at least surviving the Naru. In the Priest Order Hall questline, the players stabilize a Void God and imbue it with the light, and when this happens it turns into a Naru, perhaps revealing the origin of Void Gods being disembodied lightless souls of the Naru. Light-depleted Naru become Void Gods, and we've seen another Naru in Revendreth that is imbued with death. We've seen Titans vibrant with life magic like Eonor or turn to death magics like Argus. Those that are corrupted deeply by Fel but not destroyed may become demons. Velen believed Elune to be like the Naru, and Khadgar believed she created them, and the Tears of Elune were able to resurrect Prime Naru Zera. And all of these things happen in Legion except the Death Naru I mentioned in the Shadowlands, perhaps telling us that the astral pantheon of Elune, Anshi, and Losha are involved in the creation of souls through their link with the element of spirit. Of course, spirit only works as a balancing force in the universe, and so it may be why the Void Lords and Pantheon of Death and others must exist to balance the forces. And the tome tells us that Elune created the Naru during the Great Ordering of Light and Shadow. However, these many accounts of Elune are conflicting. The eyes of the Earth Mother say that she was created by the Earth Mother who sacrificed herself to keep the old gods at bay. Velen thinks she herself may be a Naru, or that the Naru resemble her powers. Khadgar thinks that she created them, and a tome tells us that she created them near the beginning of time, when light and shadow emerged and clashed in the universe. And despite how ancient that is, Xal'atath refers to Elune as a young upstart goddess when the priestess players attempt to devour an undescribed remnant of power within Elune's temple. Elune then kills them for that, by the way. It is possible that Elune's personal spirit exists outside of the mortal reality, which might explain these inconsistencies in the timeline. Like how the Shadowlands and Void and Emerald Dream sort of just exist outside of time, or on their own time. Time is a product of order, if I remember correctly, so in their realms it may not be present. Elune and her priesthood strive for tranquility and balance, not unlike monks in the element of spirit. I find it hard to speculate on what Elune is in this regard, and it is a mystery still. But I believe personally she is a powerful entity of what I've been referring to as the astral pantheon of life, along with Losho and Anshi. Life and spirit seem to be very tightly intertwined, like death and decay are. They're not one and the same, but close in relevance. Like all souls, they were spirits that went through a mysterious process and attained a higher form. We know that the Titans and Pantheon of Death have souls, and it's very likely the Naru do as well. And it's very likely the Naru do, as Zera's soul exists on what she calls the astral plane after her death. The astral plane traversed by shamans and described by Zera may be Elune's realm or the realm of the spirits. In the astral plane, where our consciousness travels to commune with Zera's spirits, we're just in space with nothing but stars, us, and Zera. The two times that Elune is represented in-game are when she causes an ellipse from the moon covering the sun, and then the moonlight reaching down and grabbing Ysera, and immortalizing her mortal form as a constellation in the stars, and again when Tyrande is possessed by Elune to talk with the Winter Queen. Tyrande's face becomes that of stars and black space between them. In my video on decay, I talked about how I think blood magic is the element of decay used on mortal flesh, while I think that what the Drust do to souls is the use of element of decay on souls to control it and bend it to the will of the Drust. I'm bringing this up again because the moons turning red in WoW are symbolic of death and decay. The blood magic used by the Bleeding Hollow clan of Draenor talk about the blood moon. And when entering the area of Bwonsamdi's temple in Nazmir, the sky darkens to night and the moon is red. Hakkar is also depicted in art with that of a red moon. In another creation myth for Losho the Blue Child, the smaller of Azeroth's two moons, it is said that when the Pale Lady is angry or furious, she turns to red. Worgen are also sometimes associated with both the red and white moon, perhaps symbolic of their two forms, and the Kirintor mage who first summoned the sleeping Worgen into the world from their dream state is named Aragul, and his shade exists on Blood Moon Isle in Northrend. I've barely touched the surface of the history of spirits or my many theories about it, but I did talk a lot. I have one final theory. I think that the moons and sun are symbolic for the astral pantheon. I think that Anshi is the Tauren's name for Eonor, and that Losho, or the Blue Child, is the Winter Queen. In this context, it makes sense to me for these three to see the element of spirit as their mother, because the element of spirit is involved in the creation of their souls. It is a part of them, as much as any other living thing. And it is by their mother's dying will that they should look after all living things, as spirits in life and as souls in the afterlife.